Welcome to the very first installment of the Lights Out podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing race results, paddock news, historic races, and technical aspects of the sports. But today, we will be bringing up the Monaco Grand Prix. Ahead of the race itself, we will be talking about the track, some unforgettable incidents at said track, and what to expect this race weekend. First of all, the Circuit de Monaco is arguably the most iconic track on the race calendar. An unforgiving track that has not been excluded from the calendar since its debut in 1929. The circuit ensures a ruthless ride with winding turns, elevation changes, tight corners, and unforgiving barriers. The ultimate test of drivers' sheer skill and accuracy that made three-time world champion Nelson Piquet describe it as like riding a bike around in your living room. Housing the slowest hairpin in F1 history, the Lowe's hairpin, and one of the fastest, the famous tunnel, overtaking is notoriously quasi-impossible, and track position plays a significant role in race results, meaning that it's all about qualifying on this track. To list some stats, the track houses 78 laps, with the lap record going to Lewis Hamilton in 2021. He also happens to be the driver on the grid with the most wins on the track with 3, but the overall driver with the most wins is Ayrton Senna with 6. Speaking of Ayrton Senna, we're all aware of his rivalry with Alain Prost, but did you know it would find its beginning at the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix? So, how the story goes is that in torrential rain, rookie Ayrton Senna, driving the underdog Tolman Hart, put on a masterclass. He carved his way through the field and was rapidly catching race leader Alain Prost. On lap 31, the race was controversially red flagged due to the worsening conditions, awarding Prost the win and denying Senna what could have been his first victory. This ignited what would later become one of the sport's most iconic rivalries. Taken from the Formula One website, the 2000 Monaco Grand Prix produced a gloriously chaotic moment barely one lap into the race. A collision between Pedro de la Rosa and Jenson Button at the Lowe's hairpin on the opening lap sent the Spaniard into a spin, triggering a 6-vehicle car park behind them. Luckily for the drivers, this was an era where teams kept spare cars in the garage, and the regulations allowed the stranded drivers to restart in them on the grid. But only if they made it back to the pits within 10 minutes of the red flag being waved. Cue one of the most peculiar spectacles in Monaco history. The drivers are sprinting back through the streets of the Principality, helmets and all, with the commentators providing an enthusiastic running commentary on overtakes and road crossings. Denise won the race and made it back in time to start from the grid rather from the pit lane, although that didn't seem to be a good omen for the Brazilian, as he crashed at Saint-Devant on lap 31. It was a chaotic start to his race and an equally chaotic end. Monaco at its wildest. Another great Monaco race that is forever ingrained in our hearts is the 2024 Home Hero race win, when Charles Leclerc took home the checkered flag to break what was known as his Monaco curse. After many years where the driver would fail to take home the this would be reminiscent of yet another elegant dive into the Monaco waters, which is by Daniel Ricciardo. 2 years after a botched pit stop cruelly robbed him of a Monaco victory, he had qualified on pole again, but history threatened to repeat itself when 20 laps in, a loss of power struck his monoplace. The Australian had no other choice but to keep driving the wheels off the car and hope for the best. Against all odds, he held on to win by a remarkable 7 seconds, producing an unforgettable redemption story. On a less heartwarming and more unhinged note, I bring up the interaction between Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso in 2017. With Alonso away racing at Indianapolis 500, he left a radio message for Button. "Jenson, my friend, I'm sure you wanted to hear my voice before starting the race. Just wishing you the best of luck. We follow you here on television. You did amazing yesterday. So yeah, take care of my car." To which Jenson responds, "Ha, okay, I'm gonna pee in your seat." Whether or not he held his end of the bargain remains to be told. On to an even more chaotic story. The year is 2006. Kimi Räikkönen retires from the Monaco Grand Prix with an exhaust issue during the opening laps. Heartbreaking indeed. 15 minutes later, where is Kimi? He is watching the race from his yacht. Truly nothing less to be expected from the Iceman. And finally, to give our expectations on who we think will take home the coveted trophy, it's looking good for Kimi Antonelli, who has won the 4 previous races. But seeing the battle between him and teammate George Russell in Canada that ended with Russell DNFing, we don't think the latter will go down without a fight either. Qualifying is key, so whoever secures that pole position has high chances of converting it into a win, but only time will tell. And speaking of time, that is all the time we have for this episode. Tune in for part 2 to see the race analysis.